Hezbollah originated within the Shia bloc of Lebanon society. According to the United States CIA estimates, Shias comprise 41% of Lebanon's population, predominating in three areas of Lebanon. Lebanon gained its independence on November 22, 1943, with the French army withdrawing soldiers from Lebanon in 1946. The framework for governance for Lebanon allocates the political privileges such as membership in parliament as well as senior bureaucratic and political appointments to each of the 17 recognized sectarian communities based roughly on the proportionate size of each community. The two most important positions of the presidency and premiership are given to the Maronites and Sunnis respectively, with the Shias receiving the Speaker of the Parliament in recognition of their status as the third largest demographic group in the country. Despite this appointment, they remain politically, socially, and financially marginalized. Hezbollah is a Shia Islamic organization in Lebanon. A number of Shia groups were slowly assimilated into the organization, such as Islamic Jihad. Israel invaded Lebanon to evict the Palestine Liberation Organization, and Hezbollah became an armed organization to expel the Israelis after the government was changed and a Christian leader installed. Hezbollah uses 1,000 to 1,500 Iranian Revolutionary Guards and is financially backed by Iran. It became the main military force among the Shia community in Lebanon, and the main arm of what became later known as the Islamic Resistance in Lebanon. After announcing the formation of Hezbollah in 1985, Sheikh Subhi Tufali became its first Secretary General. He has since twice been succeeded, with Sheikh Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah succeeding him since 1992. Hezbollah does not recognize the legitimacy of the State of Israel and is considered as a foreign terrorist organization by the United States since 1997. The main objective of this fighting group is to establish an Islamic government across the Arab world that will liberate Jerusalem and the entire area of that known as the State of Israel. The creation of the Al-Aqsa Intifada provided additional opportunities to Hezbollah to perform acts of violence against the Jewish state. Hezbollah committed several acts of violence known for its sub-conventional warfare. The effects of the Iranian directives on Hezbollah decision-making must be considered because Iran is the largest donor of Hezbollah for conducting attacks on Israel and its military. Between 2000 and 2006, there was a relatively lower level of violence along the southern Lebanese border, during which Hezbollah refrained attacking Israelis. On July 12, 2006, Hezbollah cross-border reduction of Israeli soldiers caused a 34-day war, also known as the Second Lebanese War. As a result of this conflict, 130,000 houses in Lebanon sustained partial or complete damages, also including damages to Beirut's Rafik Hariri International Airport. In sum, due to these violations, Lebanon accrued over $15 billion in damages and lost all revenues. The war resulted in more than 1 million Lebanese replaced and caused more than 1,200 deaths, one-third of which were children under the age of 12, and leaving more than 4,000 wounded or handicapped. Despite Hassan Nasrallah's regret and extensive damage to Lebanon, Hezbollah won the 34-day war politically. Israel and its sympathizers admitted to strategic defeat in the end of this war. Today, policymakers of the U.S. and Israel are interested in the continued peace with Hezbollah. However, there are several uncertainties in such situations. Shown is footage from the Second Lebanese War. Hezbollah is playing an increasingly important role in the Lebanese government. Hezbollah is strongly supported by the Shia population in Lebanon, who have felt mistreated and underrepresented by the government. This public support, combined with Hezbollah's powerful armed forces and political influence, makes Hezbollah a significant force in Lebanon, placing a noteworthy role in the Lebanese government and ultimately shaping Lebanese policy and having a tremendous impact on the country as a whole. Currently, the government in Lebanon is a republic. The executive branch consists of the Chief of State, President Michael Suleiman, Head of Government, Prime Minister Najib Mikati, as well as the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister Samir Moukil. The cabinet is chosen by the Prime Minister in consultation with the President and members of the National Assembly. Presidential elections are held by the National Assembly every 6 years. The last election was held on May 25, 2008, and the next election will be scheduled to be held in 2014. The legislative branch of the Lebanese government is made up of the National Assembly. This assembly consists of 128 seats. The representatives are voted into the assembly by popular vote, and each representative serves a 4-year term. The representation is proportional on the basis of the sectarian. The judicial branch is made up of several courts. The Constitutional Council rules on the constitutionality of Lebanon's laws. The Judicial Council rules on the political sensitivity and serious criminal cases, and the Supreme Council rules on charges against the President and the Prime Minister. There are 4 types of courts that make up Lebanon's court system. These courts include judicial, administrative, religious, and military. Each serves its own unique purpose in the Lebanese judicial system. Hezbollah is one of the 2 major political groups in Lebanon that represents the Shia Muslim population. Hezbollah has a broad support throughout the entire country of Lebanon, as well as in neighboring countries Syria and Iran, which provide copious amount of aid to the military group, thus allowing Hezbollah to fully focus on its political and military endeavors and never having to worry about raising funds, as is the issue with other groups. Hezbollah started actively participating in Lebanese politics in 1992, and by 2005, members of Hezbollah have several cabinet positions and thus played a significant role in the Lebanese government. Currently, Hezbollah holds 28 of the 128 seats in the National Assembly. It also has the most powerful army in Lebanon. Hezbollah's army is more powerful than Lebanon's own army. This gives Hezbollah a significant advantage in political endeavors. Another aspect that allows Hezbollah to gain power throughout the popularity in Lebanon is the services it provides to the Lebanese people. Because Lebanon is such a weak state, it cannot provide basic services for all of its citizens, and because Hezbollah has such an abundance of funding, it is able to intervene and provide basic services for people in need. Providing these services increases public support for Hezbollah and increases the power in the Lebanese government. Hezbollah political power, coupled with a strong military, has caused it to be regarded as the most powerful political movement in Lebanon. In a relatively short amount of time, Hezbollah has been able to leverage immense power through Lebanon's political system. Through a combination of unmatched military power, political leverage, public aid, and support, Hezbollah has created a political force unrivaled in its country. Although Hezbollah is an organization that has been around for a few decades, they are undoubtedly an extremely dynamic group that changes and adapts to their times. Ever since the heavy loss of American lives in Beirut in the 1980s, through car and truck bombs and an airplane hijacking, the Shia fundamentalist organization has denied involvement and tried to distance itself from those events, attempting to cast off the terrorist label that the United States and its allies have imposed upon it. As a country that has relentlessly denounced terrorism, the United States has long been an adversary and denouncer of Hezbollah and their actions, but after a violent decade in the 1980s, which included many attacks against the United States, Hezbollah has changed their politics dramatically and changed their image to that of a sophisticated political group that seems legitimately in an international system. Although the violence of Hezbollah has not completely quelled, their changing strategies have given this group increasing influence not only in the Lebanese government, but also around the world for other terrorist groups as well. Groups like Hamas in Palestine and Jemaah Islamiyah in Indonesia have been following the Hezbollah model to advance their beliefs as these respective groups. By undertaking overt charitable work and providing social services to its people, groups have been using the Hezbollah model to hide their true terror-provoking intentions, while therefore increasing the power of groups like Hamas and Jemaah Islamiyah. In addition to Hezbollah's influence around the world as a model of modern success, the allegiance to its political and economic supporters have become increasingly prevalent over the past months and years. Recently, Hezbollah has been under serious fire by Syrian rebels and outside entities for their alleged involvement backing al-Assad's government. The Syrian National Coalition is warning that Hezbollah's involvement could lead to greater risk in the already troubled Middle East, which has urged the Lebanese government to stop the aggression of Hezbollah and to protect civilians in the area. Although Hezbollah has denied its involvement, the United States says that Hezbollah has provided training, advice, and logistical support to the government of Syria. Although Hezbollah's power has grown increasingly public over the last 30 years, their acts of violence and terror have not ceased. Using their political, military, and economic backing, they are leveraging and showing more and more every day. Their influence in Lebanon has increased and spread throughout the Arab world. No one knows what their power can lead to, but people hope for a peaceful future.